what's up and welcome back to my channel. I am the Mass Trans and you are watching me, baby. Now, before we get today's video started, I just want to give a quick what's up to my peeps and a diabolical middle finger to the creeps. You know who you are. Alright, you guys, so what day is it? It's Wednesday. And I wanted to make this video a couple of days ago, but I didn't get around to it, so it is what it is. So we are here to talk about the Queens of R&B, SWV and Xscape, the new show that is airing on Bravo. I have been waiting to see this show. I'm a huge fan of SWV. I'm a huge fan of Xscape, so win. And I was really curious to finally get some insight into what is really going on with Xscape, because Xscape cannot seem to figure it out. And you would think, after 20 plus years and countless years of not earning, that the girls would say, you know what, let's get to the bag. So anyway, let's talk about it. So the premise of the show is you have two R&B supergroups, SWV and Xscape, coming together. And I can't figure out if it's for a one-night only performance or if they're talking about going on tour. But at the very least, we know that they're discussing a collaborative performance for one night, right? And so the show is chronicling them trying to work out the kinks in terms of how exactly we're going to get that to happen. So, you know, we do our profiles. We see Taj's family, Coco's family, Lily's family, Tiny's family, Candy's family, Tamika's family, Latocha's family. So we sort of, you know, get introduced to everyone and sort of, you know, what their current family status might be. And we see SWV, and the SWV girls are out working, and their manager comes and he says, hey, you know, I reached out to the Xscape team and said, you know, after you guys did this versus battle, you know, let's go ahead and capitalize on this energy and try to take it to the next level. So they reached out to Xscape. Taj and the girls, as Coco, Lily, all SWV girls are down in Atlanta. And Taj is hosting a brunch so that they can iron out the kinks of exactly how this is going to work. Now, prior to them getting to the brunch, we see Tamika, which is Latocha's sister, meeting up with Candy and Tiny in the studio, and she's telling us just about how there's this rift between her and Latocha and how they haven't spoken since some sort of incident in Vegas where they were locked out in their dressing rooms and Latocha walked off and didn't make sure Tamika was okay, and Tamika felt the way about that, right? So the two of them haven't spoken since then. So we get to the brunch, they haven't spoken, and the first person to arrive at Taj's brunch is Latocha. She showed up looking good. She had on a little white blouse and this sort of high-waisted skirt with suspenders number. She looked really good. But her attitude was foul, right? The attitude you could smell before you even enter the room. So she comes into the room and the other girls gradually started showing up. I believe all of the SWV girls showed up first. So we had Coco show up third, and then Lily showed up, and then Candy and Tamika and Latocha, and Tiny showed up. So when Tamika, Latocha's sister, showed up, because there's two Tamika, Tiny is Tamika, I believe, and then Tamika, which is Latocha, excuse me, which is Latocha's sister, she shows up. So when she shows up, she's looking for a seat. And it's sad because she didn't even feel comfortable she didn't even feel comfortable immediately going to sit next to her sister. So she's like, okay, so where's my seat? And I believe it was Taj who says, you know, girl, sit next to your sister. So she sits next to her, and she tries to go in for a hug, and Latocha is throwing a cold shoulder. And so I'm watching like, I don't like that, friend. I really don't like that. And before I watched this show, and it's going to give you a clue to what I think now, but before I watched this show, I was always secretly feeling like, you know, maybe the girls are ganging up on Latocha because, you know, she does have the strongest voice out of, you know, anyone in the group. And maybe there is a tinge of envy that's causing some sort of rift. But after I saw her on this show, I wouldn't want to be in a group with her. I would not want to be in a group with her. And you can tell she didn't learn how to share in kindergarten. You know, when you go to kindergarten and, you know, they teach you to share the toys with the other kids. And, you know, if you have candy, you can't just bring candy for yourself. You have to share it with everyone else. I don't feel like Latasha had to have been homeschooled, you know, and went directly to the first grade. Like, I don't feel like she really learned how to share, because that attitude that she has an only child disposition, right? Like, her energy comes across as very spoiled, very selfish, right? So anyway, her sister Tamika goes in for a hug. She gives her the cold shoulder, like, it's not giving that. Keep it moving. We ain't been talking. I need you to keep that same energy. So Tamika's like, okay, cool. So they start talking about the show, and immediately we can see that there's going to be some issues with the two groups. And what I really love, before I talk about that, I really loved how SWV, so at a certain point during this brunch, Taj is seeing the stank face all over Latasha's face. And, you know, and Taj just calls a spade a spade. She's like, girl, you know, like, what's the screw face about? Like, what are you doing here? Like, what's the problem? And she's like, oh, I'm fine. You know, as a group, you know, we got some things that we need to work out. And, you know, I can't go on tour or do anything with them until, you know, X, Y, and Z is worked out. And SWV basically says, look, girl, do you want the coins or not? Do you want this money or not? Listen, me and Lily Taj, there are times where I don't like this, that, and that about her, and she doesn't like this, that, and that about me. And whatever the case is, we understand at the end of the day, not liking each other takes a back seat to getting this coin. And that's what we focus on. Why can't y'all get there? And the reason that they cannot get there is really because of Latasha. And I got a chance to see it with my own two eyes. That Latasha is really, she has her attitude. Like, Latasha, for me, and I don't know her, so this is, you know, this is me talking about the type of woman I perceive her to be, right? Because you have some women that are a girl's girl, and you have some women that are not. And by a girl's girl, I mean the type of girl who's going to come through for homegirl, show up for her. You know, if she calls in the middle of the night and you dead asleep and your girlfriend, your sister calls, you get up and you go to the rescue. You know, if her man is giving her problems, you stay on the phone, you talk to her. You know, like, you're always there for your friend. You support them, right? That's a girl's girl. And then you have certain girls, and this is the type of woman that Wendy Williams is, right? The type of woman that when she gets into a relationship and she finds a man, she latches onto that man for dear life, right? And the man could beat her, cheat on her, deprive her of emotional support or stability. Like, the man can do whatever he wants to do to her, and she will give him opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. But when it's one of her girlfriends who shows up for her, who's in her corner, if she does one thing that she doesn't like, it's over. Finito. That's the type of energy that Latasha gives me. You know, I remember Wendy Williams very often talking about how she was so in love with Kevin, and she was going to stand by him and stick by him, and you see what they got her. You see what, so stick by him, sis. So like I said, and that's not me talking about Latasha and Rocky's relationship. I believe that's her husband's name, because they seemed happy, at least on the surface. I don't really know what the status of their relationship is, but you need a man who has his eye on the prize, right? And Latasha seems like she's ruled by emotions, like she's just super hyper emotional. And because she's so emotional, she can't make logical decisions because everything is rooted in emotions. And I'm sorry, when it comes to business, there is no room for emotions. Zero. This is business. We are here and we are focused solely on the bottom line. We don't have any time to worry about who you like, who you don't like, you know, how something made you feel. At the end of the day, I don't give a damn about how you feel. What I give a damn about is how many zeros are on this check. That's what I'm focused on. Because at the end of the day, the zeros on the check will help pay for therapy. And I can work through my issues and my emotions with my therapist. I don't have time to work through that with you, okay? I don't have time. So Latasha just strikes me as someone who's very, very hyper emotional. And it seems like her man is not necessarily, like, he placates her. He doesn't necessarily point her in the right direction. Like, look, baby, we got to get out here and get this money. Like, this is what we... What is he doing? Because they did show everyone's house. You know, they showed Tiny's house. They showed Candy's house. They even showed Tamika's house. And they also showed Latocha's house. And I'm sorry, out of everyone's home, Latocha looked like she hadn't been singing for many years. Now, that's not to say that her house was dilapidated and, you know, she was living below the poverty line, because she had a nice house. It was a decent house. But not the type of house that you would expect for someone who has been singing for as long as she's been singing, making the type of money that you would expect for her to be making, and not to mention living in Atlanta, which up until recently was, you know, a very reasonable housing market. Like, you could buy a $1 million home in Atlanta and it would look like, you know, a $20 million home out in California. And so you would expect for her to be living a little bit better than she appears to be living. I'm just saying, not passing judgment, because the house is nicer than mine at the end of the day. But I'm just saying, you know, I haven't been in a multi-platinum R&B singing group, even though I should, but I haven't. So the house just says to me, like, this is the house that a bad attitude built. Right? This is the house that I can't get along with any of my group members built. So, anyways, so Taj calls her out at the table, and she talks about how there are issues that they need to work through. And you can immediately see that her and Candy and her and Tamika in particular, she seems to be on a somewhat amiable level with Tiny. But that's the only one. Like, I can tolerate Tiny, but the rest of you, baby, ain't got no time for it. So anyway, brunch is over. Nothing has been resolved as far as what the next steps are going to be in terms of them, you know, putting this project together. But Tasha goes to her mom's house, and we see Tasha talking to her mom about what's going on, and we also see Tamika, who is en route to her mother's house, talking about how Latocha has always been her mother's favorite. And if you got kids and you have a favorite, treat the one who's not your favorite like your favorite, because kids pick up on energy. Kids can feel that. And I know that because I was my mom's favorite. I was my mom's favorite. And why wouldn't I be? But kids can feel it. And so Tamika is already preparing for the worst case scenario when she goes to her mom's house to talk with Latocha and her mom, who should be an impartial mediator, that she feels like the mother is already going to side with Latocha. And she was absolutely right. At one point, we see the mother whispering behind Tamika's back, she's jealous. What kind of mother is that? You know, listen, I don't want to talk about anybody's mom. I really don't. So I'm going to try to be respectful. But why would you do that? Why would you do that? And because Tamika may not have seen that in the moment that her mom whispered she was jealous behind her back, but when she watched that show and that subtitle played, she saw that, and that had to have hurt her. And just like Tamika said, the mom started taking up Latocha's side, and Tamika just started putting all the cards on the table. She talked about how Latocha and her husband had essentially stolen royalties from her to the tune of $30,000. And how she stopped Latocha from being arrested, and Latocha's like, that never happened. And the mother is siding with Latocha, telling Tamika that it didn't happen. I'm going to tell you right now, I believe Tamika. Why would she just make this up? Why? It makes absolutely no sense for her to just go off on this tirade about missing $30,000 for royalties for absolutely no reason. So she called her sister to the carpet, and that's pretty much where this most recent episode ended. We see them in next week's episode continuing the argument about the missing $30,000 outside of their mother's house. And after watching this episode, I just think Xscape needs to just become a trio and leave Latocha behind. Just add a D and become Xscape, because we escaped Latocha. Escaping Latocha. Because energy like that can't be fixed. Let me tell you why it can't be fixed. It can't be fixed because Latocha doesn't believe that she's the problem. She does not believe that she's the problem. She thinks that everything she does is absolutely correct, that she's not, that is everyone else is the issue. And when you are amongst the group, right, and everyone in the group has an issue with you, chances are you're the common denominator. You are the problem. It's you. It's not Candy. It's not Tiny. It's not Tamika. It's Latocha. Latocha is the poison in that group. I'm kind of upset at her now too, because I feel like I probably would have got a couple good more Xscape albums, you know, back in the 90s and 2000s if she would have been able to act right. But she just can't. She cannot. There is just something, in the words of Outkast, she got some stank on you. She has some stank on her. And I don't care how many gospel tunes you sing, how much praising you do, like, that spirit was not godly. That energy was not godly. I'm sorry. And like I was saying, I think that they just need to leave her behind and just move forward as a trio. Tamika can sing Latocha's parts. Now, she doesn't quite have that same power and projection and strength that her sister does. But if Latocha's voice is an A, Tamika's voice is a B+. It's not far behind, right? Because even in the concerts that they've been doing without Latocha, when Tamika steps up to sing Latocha's parts, I'm like, damn, she sounds really, really good. And truth be told, she was Tiny and Tamika were always my favorite voices within Xscape. Like, I love what Latocha does. I love what Candy does. But it was just something about when they sang lead or their parts came in. I like the raspiness and tone of Tiny's voice. And I also like the timbre of Tamika's voice. So I've always been a fan of those two voices. So I'm okay if they have to leave Latocha behind and continue on as a trio. Because at the end of the day, you guys didn't leave her behind. You know, she left herself behind. She clearly wants a solo career. Let her be solo. Let her be solo dolo. Anyway, you guys, that is it for this week's review of the Queens of R&B, SWV, and Xscape. I'm curious to know what you thought, whether or not you think Latocha's the problem or if you think the other girls are the problem. And comment below what you think about the mom. Like, but that mother is something else. She is something else, like Mama Joyce 2.0. Is this something in the water for Atlanta moms? Like, I don't know what it is. Those Atlanta moms are something else. But anyway, you guys, thank you for watching today's video. Please do me a huge favor. Like, comment, subscribe, and share if you care. And as always, in closing, ask yourself this one poignant question. Why be bitter when we can be better? So let's be better together. I'm the Mass Trans, and I'll talk to you guys again in my next video. Bye-bye.